Welcome to Pirate Living Podcast. We're your hosts, Karan and Kristen. On this podcast, we are highlighting ordinary people living extraordinary lives. These are pirates who take small, bold actions daily to create social change. Pirate life is all about rebelling and breaking the rules for good. Creating lasting social change starts by first breaking our inner rules. After all, the hardest rules to break are your own. The pirates we highlight have dedicated themselves to creating good trouble.
Today, we are sitting down to chat with Meghan Judge. Meghan has been helping people find acceptance to be themselves. She is a trauma survivor from a very early age and has been sharing her story of moving through the trauma to take her life into her own hands with others. Meghan is the host of the podcast Judging Meghan, in which she interviews survivors who have come out on the other side and are thriving. And Meghan, we are happy to be talking with you today.
I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here. And you've been on a mission to end the stigma surrounding mental health and trauma. And you're creating a safe, fun, judgment-free space for others on your own podcast. So would you tell us the story of what started you on your pirate journey and led you where you are today?
Okay, I love that I'm now a pirate. I've always wanted to be a pirate.
Yes.
Now I really am one. So basically, how I started this journey was I, at a very young age, so I can kind of tell you the story. I lost my baby sister very tragically. We were Irish twins, so we were very close in age. My mom had found her in her crib, unresponsive. She passed in her sleep. She had a very rare liver disease at that time. Now they could do the surgery and she probably would be living, but back then it was not a good diagnosis to have. So my mom came down in shock because she didn't expect it, obviously. And I was in my high chair, and that triggered, like, I was left in the high chair for a very long period of time because my mom was just completely ran outside. The paramedics came in. I think she passed. I don't know. It's just all hearsay because I was so little. But basically what happened was I was potty trained. I was a happy little toddler and I went completely backwards. I needed to be re-potty trained. They say the first 3 years of development of the brain are the most important. So any kind of trauma for a child that young is usually pretty bad because then it stays with them if they don't get help. So that happened. And I don't like to say, but I do say that every decade I had something pretty traumatic happen. So then my dad was diagnosed when I was 12 with leukemia, and he passed 9 months later. And then almost a decade later, my very best friend, who was like my sister, and I'm kind of like part of her family now to this day, she passed away tragically in childbirth. They didn't connect the epidural correctly, and the strep virus got into her spinal cord and her brain swelled and she passed. So all of those things, that I hate for the long-winded story, but I kind of need to give the backstory so it kind of makes sense. So all of those things really I pushed down for a really long time. My mom remarried. My stepfather was abusive and an alcoholic. I struggled with an eating disorder. That was a way for me to cope. But I really just pushed things down. I would use humor as a way of coping and pretending like things didn't matter. I loved to get into some kind of character. I was an actress when I was young. And so it all kind of came to a boiling point when I was, I'm a mom of 2 little girls, and I was sitting on a beach in 2019, which I thought was going to be the worst year ever. Hello, 2020. I was like, oh, COVID, what is that? But I was in 2019 sitting on a beach, and I was looking out in the water at my 2 girls playing, and I just was like, I don't want to go on. Like, I'm done. And to get to that point as a human being where you can't think of anything else. I mean, I would be up every night trying to think of, like, I was obsessing over killing myself, which was a very scary place to be. And so that's what really, long-winded answer, that's what really brought me on my journey to where I am today.
Mm-hmm. And so once you reached that point, what did you do to turn things around to get to where you are now?
So what I did was I was already in therapy. The whole thing was really kind of triggered, that where I got to that point, by a really bad friend breakup. I mean, we're women. We know that women can be, am I allowed to cuss on your podcast?
It's a pirate podcast. Go
ahead. Women can be pretty shitty. And I had I thought, good. I know now it was a dysfunctional friendship, but I had somebody that I thought was my close friend, and she did some really mean things and had like a bunch of moms like gang. I mean, it sounds really stupid talking about it now, but it is still to this day, to be honest with you, painful, because I thought these people were my friends. Mm-hmm. But it really triggered something in me where I was like, didn't want to go on. Like I couldn't, I love to be around people, and I felt alone and like abandoned. And so to answer your question, I was in therapy, and my therapist, who's amazing, Dr. Nadine Macaluso, who was married to the real Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan Belfort, and portrayed by Margot Robbie in the movie. Mm-hmm. She is now a therapist, and she's not just a therapist, she's like a badass therapist. And I had been in and out of therapy my whole life, and she's the first person I ever met that just like got me. Mm-hmm. And so with the help of therapy, and then also I went on Zoloft because I was having severe panic attacks. And then I started this little podcast of mine. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of, to be honest with you, saved my life, because I feel happy because I'm helping other people and normalizing that it's okay, like, to be depressed and have problems with depression and anxiety.
Mm-hmm. And so what made you start the podcast?
I think Dr. Nay helped. So because I was, as a kid, growing up, I was a theater major in college. I moved to LA to become an actress. I had been creative my entire first half of my life, and then kind of quit, went into corporate America. I'm no longer in corporate America, but that kind of that creativity had been pushed down. Mm-hmm. So she was like, you should do something with this. And I started to think I guess I started to listen to other people's podcasts, and I was like, you know what, I could probably do a podcast. Like, it doesn't seem that hard. And I think I'm pretty funny, so maybe people would listen. And it just kind of happened that way. I had a friend that had a pretty successful podcast, and I reached out to her and was like, can you hook me up with your producer? And it just kind of happened from there. Mm-hmm. So
it's really cool.
How has conversations with other trauma survivors helped you personally?
If you listen to my podcast, I literally cry pretty much and I don't just cry, I ugly cry often on my podcast. It's helped me because every story, I try to look for specific, different topics and different things that people have gone through in life, whether it be somebody, I had an Olympic swimmer that was molested by her coach, and she's doing great now, to somebody that lost her whole family in a shooting, to I had the journalist that was beheaded by ISIS. His mother, Diane Foley, came on last month. So I've had all kinds of really horrible, tragic stories. But what I've found and what has helped me is that using Diane, James Foley's mom, as an example, like to have your son be beheaded by ISIS and then not be, broadcast all over the world. Everybody saw it.
Mhm.
How does somebody like that go on? But I think what has helped me is I've been able to be like, wow, if she can go on, I can go on. Like, what am I complaining about that my muffin top is like over my jeans right now and I can't button my pants,
Yeah.
Sorry. But but yeah, so that's really kind of helped me.
So it's helped you get some perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I talk about this a lot in my own life, I'm a big believer in signs, that like our loved ones are with us. My sign happens to be a butterfly. And when I see them, I talk to them. I'm a total weirdo, I know. But also I'm really spiritual. So I really lean in on not necessarily organized religion, but my like spirituality. And just knowing that like kind of everything happens for a reason and that we're all going through something, even though maybe you can't tell that somebody is a lot of times. So I hope that answers your question.
Have you noticed any common themes with the people as they're going through the trauma and processing it and moving forward in life? Are there any common themes that come up with what they're doing within their own lives?
Well, I think a common theme, like so most of my guests have gone through loss. I would say the majority like have grieved somebody, lost somebody. And I think the common theme is that we all in life are going to go through some sort of loss of a loved one. And it's how you process it and how you're able to talk about it. And if that means you come on my show and you're going to cry, which happens often, then cry. I mean, we're all like, grieving's a really funny thing because I think we grieve for our entire lives, especially if it's somebody that, I mean, my best friend was my, like, part of my heart is forever missing. So I would say for the rest of my life, even though I have like days where I'm like, oh, I won't even think about Julie, but the grieving process is a lifelong process. It's just how you deal with it. And I think too, a lot of people don't want to be reminded of it. So we all kind of run away from it. If you have had loss, you're like, oh, I don't want to think about it if someone else is going through it. Whereas I think most of my guests will say, well, the right thing to do is to be in it, go through it. And then you won't have to be, and I'm in my 40s, you won't have to be in your 40s dealing with, therapy and all of this stuff. If I would have just dealt with this at a younger age and been told these things were normal, then I don't think I would be where I am today, but I'm here for a reason.
Yeah.
So
yeah, one of the important things that, we talk about with our clients is, actually feeling your feelings.
yeah,
right? It's when we try to avoid them that things go awry versus you're right, like feel sad, feel the loss, do the crying. Like it needs to happen for us to move on, right?
100%. And I think that people, especially Americans, we're like, we throw ourselves in different things to try and escape, whether it be alcohol. I like a buttery Chardonnay personally, or like shopping, or there's so much like retail therapy. There's different ways for us to just escape. Whereas if we really look these things in the eye, so to speak, and talk about them and normalize. I think COVID is a horrible thing, and we've lost like 800,000 people, which nobody talks about. Really, it's so important to remember those people, but also I think it's brought out good things as well, which is let's talk about mental health. Let's talk about the fact that everybody was coped up in their house for, however long, and it's okay to not be okay, right?
Yeah, well, there's so much that collectively everybody's been moving through the last 2 years that I think is also unifying in a way of like it was a worldwide thing. We all went through shutting ourselves away and getting to decide, are we going to feel our feelings or push them down?
Yeah. I think it's time that I think our world is so messed up. I think because of pushing stuff down and not being real and not being honest, and kind to each other. So I think that there's so many good things that maybe aren't showing right now, but I think more and more people are getting in touch with the fact that it's okay to talk about pain and, having issues with depression.
What's the social rebellion that you're starting with your work and your podcast?
Social rebelling? Can you
Rebellion. Yeah,
Rebellion.
like what rebellion are you trying to make with your podcast and the work that you're doing?
Oh my God, I love that question. I'm stumped, and I really am. I don't know if like necessarily I am rebelling because I'm basically there's people that, specifically women, that were unkind to me that I think just wanted me to fall off the face of the planet. And I, at the time, thought, oh, they don't like me because of this, or this, or I'm too loud, I'm too this, I'm not this enough. And then when I realized part of the reason that this particular friend had such a big problem with me was because I was loud, because I was different, because I didn't want to check a box and wear like a lace dress, and I want to wear what I want to wear. I live in a very kind of interesting area that is, even though I live in Los Angeles, it's a 2-mile radius and it's a very well-off area. Everybody dresses alike, it's being different and speaking your mind and being female is not necessarily like something that women in this area, they want to be popular, so they're kind of like a lot of followers.
Stepford wives?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Like the Stepford wives?
Yeah. Yeah, that's where I live. I'm not kidding either. Yeah. So my rebellion is just not that I didn't lay down. And, it's pretty funny. Some of them, like, I had to block a lot of them because it's like they were all like following my stories. I'm like, you're so dumb. I can see that you're following my Instagram stories, dumb. So I block a lot of them because I'm like, I just don't want them in my lives. Like, I just want to be free. So I guess the long-winded answer to your question is I rebelled and picked myself up and was pretty much like, F you, like, you're not pushing me down,
When being willing to speak your mind or say what's coming up, and being able to express and feel those feelings, those as well, like those are social rebellions, I would say, where you're, hey, I'm here, I have these feelings, I'm feeling them. So and sharing with others, helping others, and sharing their stories. So those sound pretty good social rebellions you've got going on too.
Well, and I love the, like, what is the saying, that other people's opinions are none of your business, or opinions of you are none of your business, or something like that. And I just remember, as a woman, and I'm working previously in my corporate job in a male-dominated industry, one of the guys telling me that I'm intimidating, when it's like, no, you're intimidated. There's a difference. Right. So what's going on with you is none of my business. Don't put it on me. And I think people often reflect whatever's going on with them onto other people, and then trying to make, us feel bad about ourselves, and who we are. But it's not about you. It's all about them. Right. So understanding that and taking that is a huge social rebellion.
Well, the quote is, one of my favorite quotes is, those that mind don't matter and those that matter don't mind.
Yeah.
Right. From Dr. Seuss. And it's so true. I mean, and just to touch on what you just said, working in corporate America for all the years that I did, I was in sales, and, the men hated me because I was successful and I spoke my mind and I'm alpha, and they would just be like, like, it was so interesting to see how men were treated and how I was treated. I was never like, I would see the women that were promoted are the ones that are like yes women and really quiet and just kept their heads down and agreed with the men. And then people like me that were good at what I did were kind of like overlooked for things. So I would be like, wait a minute, that's not right. Why did that happen? And then if I said something in a meeting and they would all be like, oh God. And then a man would say the same thing like the next day and they'd be like, oh, that's brilliant. Right. Yeah.
Sadly, yes, I do understand exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
So when you're talking to some of your guests, or even just the work that you've done to get yourself to where you are through the trauma, working through the trauma, what's some of the more uncomfortable questions that you've asked yourself?
Oh my God. Well, you should be in my brain. Really not. I mean, it's like, what is that? The Disney movie with like fear.
Oh yeah.
Inside Out.
Inside
That
Out.
one? I love that movie.
I love it too. And I have 2 little girls. We all love it. But I'm always like, I remember like as a joke, like watching it and I was like, oh my God, like my brain would be there'd be like way more like amusement parks and like weird stuff happening here. And I joke a lot that or I don't joke, but I have an issue with I wake up a lot in the middle of the night. My head is always kind of racing. And I think like these thoughts, like, oh, if I would have just said this, or I would have done that, or I would have, and I think it goes back to answering your question. Like a lot of times, guess, like asking the right question it can be difficult because you don't want to say something that's going to trigger somebody. And so I try to really think out. I all of my interviews, kind of like yours, are all organic. They're just conversations. I'm not somebody that like sends a list of questions that are like, where are you born? What were you thinking in 1979? I really try to think just like I would have a conversation with you guys. It's the same thing. So I think through my questions, like I would talk to somebody, but I'm always really careful about the way I talk to people and what I say. Because I think empathy is, I mean, I hate to brag, but I think I'm a very empathetic person. And that's one of my greatest strengths and superpowers, I think, is that I genuinely care about other people. And I think that my questions revolve around how I can make it so I'm kind of helping them and making them feel better, but also it's a weird cha-cha. I'm sure you obviously understand because you're doing it.
Yeah, there's part of that in the empathy too, that curiosity as well of like being able to ask the questions and then also and creating that space for them to feel safe and feel comfortable to be able to share. So that is a superpower. And I listened to part of one of your episodes yesterday, and I was entertained and also like loving to hear the flow of the conversation. So
oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that.
So we know that you started the podcast, but what are some of the other bold actions that you took to get you from where you were that day sitting on the beach with your girls to where you are now?
Well, I would say some bold actions are like I'm a little bit of an Irish Italian hothead. If you can't tell, I speak my mind. I'm not always proud of my behavior, but a bold action that I still to this day think is funny, and I will think is funny when I'm old in a nursing home. Hopefully I'm not in a nursing home, but when I'm old, sitting on my porch, was one day I saw one of the girls that was mean in carpool and I gave her the middle finger. Is that bold enough for you?
That's bold.
Yeah, pretty bold. No, but I did do that. Not really proud of it. Working through some things. But bold things that I try to do are, God, there's things I do like for my body. I think mental health is so important. It's all connected to your physical being, like your body is exercising all the time. I don't think that's bold, but I'm trying to think of anything else I do. It's kind of difficult because we're still in COVID, so I'm not like climbing buildings or like rock walls or anything like that, but I try to do things to help other people.
And self-care is a bold action in this day and age, and taking care of your own health is also considered, I would say, a bold action in this day and age. So those are definitely some bold actions. What do you do for self-care?
Well, as you can see, your audience can't see it, is I have a Peloton behind me, but I don't really use it. I did use it this week. But what I do is the beach, the ocean is my happy place, which is kind of interesting because the beach is the same place where I was sitting and wanted to like off myself, but it's always been, I can't imagine not living by the ocean. For me, it's like spirituality, it's everything. So I have 2 psychotic Labrador retrievers. One of them's not. One of them really is. I think there's something really wrong with her, but I'm obsessed with her. So I take really, really long walks every single day, like 4 to 5 miles, speed walk. Like I'm that crazy lady speed walking with my dogs. And that to me is just like, I clear my head. I think through like things that I need to work on myself, things I need to work on in my marriage, with being a mom. I'm not, I'm always trying to evolve and become a better person. I think that's why we're put here on this planet.
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to ask, one thing that we've had come up a few times in interviews was regrets of the dying. So like when people get to the end of their life, there are about 5, there's a book about the 5 regrets of the dying, but my question going toward like when you got to that point and you're sitting on the beach and you're thinking about taking your life, were there any regrets that came up in the process of that? Or was there anything like as you're coming through and realizing I do want to live, that really stood out to you?
I mean, at that point, I was in such a dark place that I didn't like. What's interesting and strange about the whole thing is I didn't really want to harm myself, but it was the obsession with waking up in the middle of the night and thinking about it and knowing how I wanted to do it. It was such a weird time in my life because I had never really gone through that. And I'm in my 40s. I had never gone through a period, even in my darkest times, with all the loss I've gone through, where I wanted to end my life. And I can't really think of regrets because I was in such a I have had, if you saw, like you would have given me a crystal ball a decade ago or over a decade ago, because Sophie's 11, and been like 20 years ago, you're going to marry, or 22. I've been with my husband since I was pretty young. We've been together 21 years. So say 23 years ago, you would have given me this crystal ball that was like, you were going to be married to a very handsome man. As I was dating the douchey men that I was probably dating at the time. And you were going to have 2 little girls, which is, I always wanted to be a girl mom because I can't imagine myself with a boy. And this is going to be your life, and you're going to live by the beach, and you're going to have like do this, and this. I wouldn't have believed you. I would have been like, no way. But that's how dark it was for me. I couldn't even appreciate the fact that I had everything I would have dreamed about 23 years prior. So I can't answer your question because I don't know the answer, which is so sad, right?
Well, you had another thought came to mind as well. Have you ever heard of the book It Didn't Start With You by Mark Woolen?
No, but I want to read it.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. While you were talking, a question did come to my mind too of how old was your dad when he had leukemia?
So my dad was diagnosed at 45 and he died at 46, which is really, really young.
Yeah. And why I ask is part of like, and it didn't start with you, is we also get handed down family traumas that replay in our lives. And within that book, there are quite a few people that he talks about that he's worked with that are replaying family traumas within their life. So something comes up, and there was one woman who had suicidal thoughts that were coming out of nowhere, but she ultimately didn't want to take her life. What she ended up finding out for her personally was that there were Holocaust survivors in her family, and she was replaying some of that fear in their life of like, I'm going to die, like I could die. So that thought came to my mind while you were talking.
Yeah. And I believe that, by the way. I believe in that kind of stuff. I've always had this like weird, I probably sound like I'm mad, but I've always had this weird fear of somebody touching my neck. Since I was a kid. I've never liked somebody touching my neck. And a lot of times I go like this, if I get like a bad feel, you know, when you walk in someplace and you're like, there's a spirit or something weird in here, I need to leave. So I'm always kind of like this. And my friend years ago, my friend from college went to this psychic in New York, and very well-known psychic. And she took out 2 pictures, one of myself and one of another friend of ours from college. And she wanted to kind of like see if the psychic was like the real thing. So the psychic said, oh, this girl, she was strangled in her past life. And I was like, and my friend was like, oh my God, because she knew, like living, we were roommates in college, that I had that fear. So I believe all that stuff is true. It's crazy. And yeah.
Yeah. You look into the book. I think
I
you'll
will.
enjoy
I'm
it.
gonna message you to get the actual.
Yeah. I'll send.
So yeah, tell us a little bit more about your podcast and where people can go to find you. And
okay, so my podcast is called Judging Meghan, and Meghan is with an H, Meghan. I was the original princess. I always knew I would be one, and then I'm joking. So it's called Judging Meghan. It's available on Apple, Spotify, wherever you stream. You can also follow me on my Instagram, Judging Meghan, and my website, judgingmeghan.com. Pretty easy.
Perfect. Good to make it simple.
Yeah.
So our next question is, how would you recommend that our listeners start their own pirate life and taking actions to get going on their own journey?
Well, now that I know that I'm a pirate, I would say, like, hold yourself accountable, you know. I like to post quotes. I post them all the time on my Instagram and my stories. And I posted one the other day about it was something like, the loss or the pain isn't your fault, but the work is your like duty. Like basically, everybody needs to be accountable for whatever they go through in life and hold themselves accountable. Like I'm accountable for working through my massive amount of pain that I still carry with me to this day. And whether that be like going to therapy, being put on medication. I'm actually weaning myself off of Zoloft because I don't plan on being on medication anymore. I'm really trying to do things like EMDR, different forms of therapy, and working on myself. So I would say to your listeners, the most important thing is to hold yourself accountable. And, you know, we can all complain and be like, woe is me, like I went through this, and this in my life. And you can continue to talk about it, but all you're doing is it's never going to stop because you're just talking about it. You're not doing anything to help yourself.
Yeah, so take action.
Take action. Yeah.
And the last question, the most important question, do you know any pirate jokes?
Oh my God. I feel like I sent you one and now I can't remember what it is.
You did.
I did, and it was really dumb, but I was joking. I said a pirate, a rabbi, and a priest walk into a bar. That's the only I don't know any pirate jokes.
Okay, we have one for you.
Okay, we hear it.
So what's the name of the world's most frugal pirate?
I don't know.
Barry D. Treasure.
Oh, that's a good. My daughter knows that one. That's really funny.
Well, she can tune into all our episodes and hear all of our terrible,
we've got plenty
pirate
of bad jokes.
I have a question for you. Am I allowed to ask you?
Yeah,
of course.
Have you ever been on the Pirates of the Caribbean?
Yes.
Okay. Do you like it?
Oh yeah.
That's
At
fun.
Disney? Do you like
It's
it?
fun.
Oh, it's my favorite ride.
Is it?
Yeah.
I actually really enjoy the restaurant there.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, it's a good restaurant.
we saved that as like our final dinner, like big meal. And when we took the family down to Disney, and it was a lovely restaurant there, and watching all the boats go by.
I heard they make a delicious dirty martini, that restaurant.
Don't know. I do recall having a good piece of steak though.
Okay, good to know. Good to
Yeah.
know. I just had to ask you because I love that ride.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun.
I'm trying to remember if I went on it. I was 14 or so when I went to Disney with my mom, my dad, and my younger brother. So I remember some of it, but some of it I think I purposefully blocked because I was like,
Yeah.
it's a family vacation.
Yeah, when you have kids, that's like, I've been on Pirates of the Caribbean like more times than I would like to tell you, but it is my favorite ride.
It's not my favorite, but it is a good one for sure. We
Love it.
Now I know.
I guess,
need to go.
Kristen, we need a Disney trip.
Oh, well, and I guess the question is this a Disneyland ride only? Because I've only been to Disney World.
I think it's but in both places.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure.
But I live in LA, so in Anaheim we have Disney.
Yeah.
I've never been to Disney World, so I don't know.
Me neither. It is not at Disney Paris. I can tell you that.
Okay.
Well, look at you. One up
however-
of us going to Disney Paris.
However, Disney
Yeah.
Paris does have my all-time favorite ride with Hyperspace Mountain. So good. Yeah, it's like Space Mountain on crack. It's so good. Yeah.
Okay. Well, next time I'm in the neighborhood in Paris.
Worth the trip.
Yeah, next time I'm
Well, we have to go visit some more Disneys because we've been to Anaheim, but do a little tour of the
I love
international
Disney.
Disneys.
Yeah,
So.
Disney's good times. And I never thought like I would miss it because of COVID. We haven't been. And you kind of take it, you kind of are like, oh, I live here, we can go anytime. But I really, really miss it. And if you would have told me that I would be feeling that way 2 years ago, I wouldn't have believed you.
Yeah.
One of my clients, she's in your area. And a couple of weeks ago, her and her boyfriend took a random Wednesday off and went to Disney. And I'm looking at their Instagram like, oh, I'm jealous.
I know, it's kind of weird like that. Like you see couples, like when you have kids,
Yeah.
that's just, you have to go. But then I'm like, good for you. Like, it looks like you're happy and having fun. I probably wouldn't get married at Disneyland and have like a veil that says Mickey and but
I had friends that got
each
married
to his own.
Yeah.
Now the question is, did you have the Disney annual passes since you live so close?
Okay, so I did. So that's why we would go all the time because it's really expensive.
Yeah.
And then when my oldest is in 6th grade now, when they go into school and they have it doesn't make any sense. When they're really little, you can just, they don't have school. So you just go to Disney every week. Now, it wouldn't make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Asking the hard-hitting questions here.
I know, those are the important ones.
I think this is a very important subject.
Exactly.
Disneyland.
It's the
Disneyland versus Disney World.
happiest place on earth.
Exactly.
It makes sense that it should be on this podcast.
Yes.
I mean,
it's all about
you
fun.
literally cannot be sad eating an ice cream on Main Street. Try
That's
it.
true.
Try it.
Unless you drop the ice cream.
Well,
Mm.
well, that would
Sorry.
be terrible. Yeah.
Then I imagine a character will come up though and like pat you on the back.
give you
And a hug.
Give you like a big Minnie Mouse hug.
Uh-huh.
You feel better by
I'm sorry, I really didn't mean to like talk about Disney, but when you bring up pirates, I can't help but think of Pirates of the Caribbean.
I love
Absolutely.
it. Well, that was it for us. Do you have any
more
other
questions?
I'm trying to think. No, not really. I love talking to you both, though. I mean, I think you're both doing amazing work, and you did stump me with your question that I rarely stump. So I love what you're doing, and
Awesome.
I would love to have you both on my podcast in the new year.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you for having me on.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you for being here.
It's rock and roll, guys. There are no rules. This one goes to 11.